Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us.
It's great to be back.
Today, we're going to kind of go behind the scenes of what feels like a real-life spy thriller.
Oh, yeah.
This is an operation that's been attributed to the Mossad, Israel's intelligence agency.
Right.
And just to give you a taste of what we're talking about, think like ingenious planning and unexpected explosions and kind of global shockwaves.
Wow, yeah.
And the thing that ties all this together is something as ordinary as a beeper.
Really?
So yeah, we're going to unravel what's been called Operation Beeper.
It's a crazy story. It reads like a Hollywood script, but the implications are very real. And I think, we're going to see how this event forced the world to re-examine how espionage works in the digital age.
Definitely. I think that's a really good point. And we have, I think, kind of a fascinating mix of sources for this one. We've got international news coverage. Yeah. We've got expert analysis, and we've even got some insights from former Mossad agents themselves.
Oh, wow.
So are you ready to kind of see how this all unfolded?
Absolutely. Let's dive in.
Okay, so imagine this. A series of explosions hit Lebanon and Syria, causing chaos and confusion.
Right.
But the culprit wasn't some sophisticated weapon or a really well-coordinated attack. It was booby-trapped beepers.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, what was the reaction like when this all kind of came out?
So the global reaction, immediately was just shock and disbelief. International media outlets were just trying to figure out what even happened.
Right.
And there's one expert who really summed it up well, I think. He said, "This is the biggest counterintelligence failure Hezbollah has had in decades."
So by counterintelligence failure, what it means is?
Essentially, Hezbollah's efforts to protect their own intelligence were completely undermined.
Wow.
They had no idea this was coming.
Yeah, it sounds like they were caught totally off guard.
Yeah, and Hezbollah, for those who might not be super familiar, they are a powerful political and militant group based in Lebanon, and they vowed to retaliate after this.
Yeah, I bet.
Which, of course, left everybody kind of on edge, waiting to see what would happen next.
I can only imagine. But were there any other reactions to this besides, kind of the serious geopolitical implications?
Yeah, actually, there were some lighter reactions, too. Like there were all these satirical cartoons going around showing beepers disguised as Trojan horses.
Oh, that's funny.
It really captured the world's imagination, how something so simple could be used in such a devious way.
Definitely, yeah.
This story was everywhere. Major news networks, social media, everyone was talking about it.
It definitely went viral.
But I think what's really fascinating, beyond just kind of the headlines and the initial shock, is how meticulously planned this whole operation was.
Yeah, how did they even pull this off?
So that's what we're going to look at. We have a bunch of different sources, including, like I mentioned, that 60 Minutes episode with those former Mossad agents.
Right.
And it paints this picture of incredible ingenuity and really close attention to every detail.
So where did it all begin?
It all started when the Mossad discovered that Hezbollah was really heavily reliant on these specific beepers made by a company in Taiwan. They were using them for communication, and that became the Mossad's target.
Oh, so it was like a vulnerability hiding in plain sight.
Exactly. But, it wasn't as simple as just like tampering with a few beepers.
Right.
The Mossad actually went all out and launched this whole fake marketing campaign.
Oh, wow.
To make sure that Hezbollah would only buy rigged devices.
So they were basically steering them toward their own downfall?
Exactly. Pretty ingenious.
Yeah.
Right.
That's some next level manipulation for sure. But what if Hezbollah had seen through it? Wouldn't that have been like a huge backfire?
That's a good question. And that's where all the meticulous planning comes in.
Okay.
They tested everything so rigorously, using dummies and wearing gloves to handle everything.
Wow.
Just to make sure that the detonations would cause maximum damage to whoever was supposed to be the target, while also minimizing collateral damage.
I see.
So a calculated risk, but they were really aiming for precision.
Yeah, so they weren't just trying to cause chaos. They wanted a targeted strike.
Exactly. But how do you even pull off an operation this big without being detected?
Right. That's a good question.
So to maintain secrecy, they went to some pretty extreme lengths. They actually adopted the name of that Taiwanese company and created this whole network of shell companies.
So it was like a complete smokescreen to hide what they were doing.
It was a brilliant smokescreen that really kept their involvement hidden for a long time.
That's incredible. But how many of these booby-trapped beepers are we even talking about?
Over 5,000.
Wow.
Thousands of rigged devices just infiltrated into the heart of Hezbollah's operations.
That's a bold move.
Yeah, and the impact was devastating.
Devastating how?
So 30 Hezbollah operatives were killed,
Oh my gosh.
3,000 injured, and
Wow.
some were permanently disabled.
That's awful.
This wasn't just a setback for Hezbollah. This was a major blow to their ability to operate.
And so what about like the larger implications of this? I mean, we're not just talking about the immediate casualties, right?
Right. This operation had ripple effects throughout the entire region. It potentially even weakened Iran's influence in the Middle East.
Wow.
It was a game changer, shifting the balance of power in a really significant way.
And how did Israel react?
Well, in a move that surprised a lot of people, Prime Minister Netanyahu actually confirmed Israel's involvement.
Wasn't that kind of risky? I mean, couldn't that compromise future operations?
It was definitely a calculated risk.
Yeah.
But it sent a clear message to Iran and its allies
What kind of message?
that Israel has the reach and the willingness to act decisively. It was as much a psychological operation as a tactical one.
I see.
And there's this quote from a former Mossad agent that I think sums it up really well. He said that Israel can reach its enemies in a creative way from a place they do not expect.
Wow.
It's kind of a chilling statement, but it also speaks to the agency's ability to think outside the box and come up with these really innovative strategies.
Definitely, yeah. So Operation Beeper wasn't just about taking out a few targets. It was about sending a message and disrupting Hezbollah's operations at their core.
Exactly. And I think it really raises some interesting questions about the future of warfare in the digital age.
Yeah, definitely a lot to think about. And that brings us to like a really critical question. What does Operation Beeper tell us about the future of warfare?
Yeah, it's like we're in this new world where the lines between physical battlefield and digital warfare are getting super blurry.
Right.
I mean, who would have thought a simple beeper could be such a powerful weapon?
Yeah, it's a perfect example of how those traditional espionage tactics can be combined with this cutting-edge technology.
Right.
You know, the Mossad found this digital vulnerability that Hezbollah had, their reliance on those specific beepers, and they exploited it.
Yeah.
And they totally achieved their objective.
And it makes you wonder what other everyday objects could be weaponized in the future. I mean, is our smartphone the next ticking time bomb?
That's a scary thought. Operation Beeper is a huge wake-up call, I think, about how important cybersecurity is both for like big organizations and just individuals.
Right.
I mean, the threats are changing all the time, and we have to be ready to adapt.
And speaking of adapting, it's clear that the Mossad is really thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
They're constantly innovating to stay ahead of everyone else.
Yeah.
It really makes you realize how much creativity and resourcefulness is at play in the world of intelligence.
Right. And adaptability is key in a world where technology is constantly changing.
Yeah.
But, you know, Operation Beeper also raises some ethical questions.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, we're talking about a covert operation that ended up with a lot of casualties,
Right.
even if those targets were part of a militant group.
That's a really important point. It makes us think about how complex modern warfare is.
Right.
And the moral dilemmas that come with it. We really need to have these open conversations about where the lines should be drawn.
I agree completely. And those conversations become even more important as technology keeps advancing. What are the limits of these covert operations in a digital age?
Right.
How do we make sure we have national security, but also protect individual rights and follow international law?
Those are big questions with no easy answers.
Yeah.
But Operation Beeper definitely changed things.
Yeah.
It forced the world to confront these issues.
For sure. And the impact of this operation is still unfolding. We don't even know the full extent yet. How did it affect things geopolitically? What about the balance of power in the Middle East?
Right.
And the future of espionage, too. It's all kind of up in the air.
It's like we're living in a real-life spy thriller with these plot twists you could never predict.
And who knows what else is out there? What else is happening in the shadows?
Right.
The world of intelligence is always changing, and we need to pay attention.
Keep those deep dive goggles handy.
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy to think something as simple as a beeper could have such huge global consequences.
It really shows how technology is changing everything, even in the world of intelligence.
Operation Beeper is just one example.
Yeah, there's so much going on behind the scenes that we never even hear about. What other technologies are being used in ways we can't even imagine?
Lots of questions about the future. But before we get lost in all that, I think it's worth taking a minute to appreciate how much we learned today.
This has been fascinating, hasn't it?
From those first explosions to all the planning by the Mossad, it's just a crazy story.
Yeah, and a huge thank you to Roni for finding all these sources for us. It's listeners like you that make these deep dives so great.
We couldn't do it without you. And if you're enjoying this and want to learn more about intelligence in the Middle East, hit that subscribe button. We'll be back with more deep dives into Israel, its history, its culture, and its impact on the world.
So many more stories to tell.
But before we go, we wanted to leave you with one last thing to think about.
Okay.
If something as simple as a beeper can be used as a weapon, what other everyday objects could we see weaponized in the future?
And how will intelligence agencies adapt to these new challenges? Can they keep us safe while still considering the ethical side of things?
Lots to think about.
Until next time.
Keep exploring and asking those tough questions.
And keep those deep dive goggles close by.
We'll see you on our next deep dive.